Today, I want to talk a bit about what I've learned when it comes to implementing change. I'll share my experiences and I'll give some tips to people who are hoping to introduce change at their company. Let's get into it. When it comes to change, I've found that it isn't easy. I've spent most of my background in consulting, and I've often been the new person, but then even when I've been at a place for a while, even when you're in a situation where people admit that we need to change, and then you come with ideas or you want to help other people with the ideas, it's always been a challenge. And from speaking to people in the industry, I've realized I'm not alone in these struggles. When I've heard people talk and they say, oh, well, I've done these sorts of changes at other companies before, I've done similar sorts of changes already. So then they think it might be easier than it ends up being. But if I was to describe how introducing change to companies has been, it's always ranged from somewhere between very hard to extremely difficult, at least in my experience. Where I'd like to start off with is building trust. So when it comes to introducing new ideas, I find that a lot of people don't judge the merit of your idea based only on, or just based solely on how good your idea is. They're also judging you. They're also thinking about, does this person have my best interests at heart? Does this person know what they're talking about? So when I have wanted to introduce changes at places, I'm not exactly thinking, oh, okay, I see this, I see that, let's get into it. I first try to start with the relationships and go from there. This is something that can take time because naturally with building relationships, at least for me, I click with some people, I click with some stakeholders, and then for others it's been more of a concerted effort to understand them. Part of building trust is truly listening. So let's say you have this idea of what you want to help them achieve, and you obviously, like, oh, you think this all helps, you want to introduce these changes, but then you're exposed to new information, which may force you to change your mind. So I've also tried to pivot where it makes sense or show that I'm listening and taking what they say into consideration, and then pivoting. I've been on the receiving end of having people want to implement changes or introduce new ideas, and then when you've given them feedback, then they go on the same course anyway. And when I realized that, I thought to myself, okay, how many times have I tried to introduce changes to a company but not realized that maybe in their context there's some information I'm missing, which meant that my ideas as themselves weren't quite good enough to fit. Maybe they had to be adjusted, and so on. Another thing I've learned is to do with status quo bias. So there is this bias towards the status quo, and what I've found is you'll also come across people who believe that the status quo exists because it should, because it's the best approach out there. And this ties then also into people preferring, I think it's like better the devil you know than the devil you don't. So then while they may be unhappy with how things are, at least that's a known to them, and they don't want to risk any sort of change which may hurt them more than the way they are currently being hurt. So I remember at a past project, when I was trying to introduce some changes, I made the mistake of thinking that just because some people were unhappy, they'd be happy to support me in having these changes happen, because I thought, oh, okay, well, this will help them. And while they admitted that they would be helped and that things would improve, there was a step missing between showing that they had something to gain versus mitigating the loss or the potential perceived loss they may suffer as a result of this change. If you're looking into introducing new ideas, that's something to watch out for. Another aspect of change I would like to talk about is influence versus authority. When I had brought new ideas to teams, so for example, introducing exploratory testing, framing people's ideas and expectations of what testing can and cannot achieve, and then helping teams work together differently to spot problems earlier, I found that I remember thinking at the time, what's the point in trying? Because I'm not a manager, I'm not a boss. I learned to influence without authority, which in itself had its own advantages. The biggest one that I could think of on hindsight, now that I'm a manager, is that people are more open and willing to challenge your ideas, because of course people may not want to hurt people's feelings, but I guess there's no perceived repercussions. So if you are in a position that you got some ideas, you want to try out things, then I don't want a lack of authority to stop you. Because now that I'm a manager, the new challenge I have is, at least for the people in my team, is knowing for sure that any ideas I have, or any bad ones, are going to be challenged. I do aim to create an environment where people can say no. And some people definitely do, which is good. But this wasn't a worry before my current role. Yeah, that's something in the back of my mind. So then when it comes to, say, influencing without authority, a lot of it, I think I talked about earlier, was building relationships, and showing people that you want to help them. You want them to help achieve their goals. You know what you're talking about. I would say there's no right answer as to how long that should take, because based on natural rapport with some people, I've managed to get to that point quicker with some relationships than others. One thing I learned regarding implementing change was from one of my previous managers, Maria Shedel, and she talked about starting small and having a trial. So I thought that was very smart, was starting small, because you could test it out and then you can use that test as a selling point to introduce ideas to other teams. But then also with a trial is people believe they can go back. So let's say you want your team to start using a new tool. Trying to convince a team to say, okay, let's drop, for example, Load Runner and move towards K6, for example. People will be like, oh, whoa, what's wrong with our current setup? But if you were to present it as a trial, saying, I thought this could be a good idea, here's the reasons why, could we try it out for a few weeks? I would say you're more likely to get a yes, especially if you highlight the fact that, look, if it's not working, if you're unhappy, then say no. But then you do need to outline clearly the goals of the trial and how long it will go for, and the point at which you'll decide whether or not you're going to go back or not. So I found that to be really, really smart. Another thing also when it comes to implementing change or new ideas or experimentation, let's get into that territory a bit, is how easy it is to go back to how things were. So if you're going to implement change, regardless of if you phrase it as a trial, if people feel like there's no going back, then it can, for some people, feel scarier to take that step forward. But then I've always thought that you could always take that step forward and then realize, oh, actually this was the wrong direction. Maybe we should take a step sideways. Maybe we should take a step back and then try again. Those are still valid options. You haven't actually eliminated, generally speaking, all those other options by choosing one option in which to change. Another thing about implementing change that has gotten me thinking, and this came from a conversation from someone that I had with someone today, was around by this idea that people may feel like what they were doing is wrong when you suggest change. So that you go, okay, well, why don't you do this? Or why don't you try this? I think this would be a good idea. And then what you may be saying is that, like, try these things, this could help, blah, blah, blah. But then what they could be hearing is, I've been doing something wrong. I've been doing something wrong all this time, blah, blah, blah. Being aware of the fact that the message you intend to send and then what can be received could be two different things. To me, there's this false dichotomy of thinking that your idea is right and the other person of what they were doing is wrong. Because one, you do have different sets of experiences. You do have different perceptions. So you could actually both honestly be right in your own mind. But second, what they had set up initially in the first place could have been right for that point in time or at the start. And then over time, things were no longer as suitable for their context, which meant that you, as, say, a newcomer or a new pair of eyes in the situation, was able to spot, and then you were suggesting some things. But then, realistically, changes in a team and how things work, they don't, like, happen overnight. They kind of gradually, generally speaking, they gradually change with time. So you really couldn't have picked a point at which the old idea or the current idea stopped being suitable for where they are now. So I do try to keep that in mind when I talk to people, that what I say could be challenging, what I say could make them feel like they're doing something wrong, and try to frame it as, this is what I see, this is what I've experienced that works, this is based on the information I have. And then really, I try to use, like, the tools from Crucial Conversations. You should watch that video, read that book, very good. To frame it as my story and how I perceive things. Anywho, that's it about me when it comes to implementing change. I hope you found at least one thing useful. If you have introduced change at your companies, please write in the comments below what you've learned or any highlights from this video that you actually found useful. Who knows? Yep. Bye.